"What did you do to my wife's hair?" Weston Hale's voice thunders, silencing the upscale luminary locks salon as he storms in, his black leather jacket gleaming under the lights. A deliberate sabotage has turned Quiana Harris's glossy black hair a garish blue-green, threatening her confidence before a career-defining moment. But what happens next will leave you speechless. Hey listeners, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments and tell us, will Quiana rise above this humiliation, or will prejudice win? Stick around to find out how a billionaire's wrath and a black woman's resilience flip the script. Don't miss a second of this drama. Hit that subscribe button to catch our latest stories and share where you're watching from. Can Quiana turn betrayal into triumph? And what secrets will unravel in this high-stakes showdown? Keep listening to uncover the truth. The autumn sun hung low over Boston, casting a golden sheen across the glass facades of downtown's elite district, where Quiana Harris stepped from a sleek black sedan onto the cobblestone sidewalk. Her long, glossy black hair cascaded over the shoulders of her simple white dress, a tailored sheath that hugged her elegant frame with understated power. At 38, Quiana was a vision of grace and grit, her dark eyes alight with the fire of ambition. As the founder of Solstice Innovations, a renewable energy startup poised to redefine the industry, she carried the weight of a dream that could illuminate the world. Today at 10 a.m., she had an appointment at Luminary Locks, Boston's most exclusive salon, to prepare for a contract signing with Apex Dynamics, a $500 million deal that could catapult her company into the global spotlight. Her stilettos clicked against the stone, each step a metronome of purpose, but beneath her poised exterior, a flutter of nerves danced in her chest. The salon's entrance loomed before her, a polished glass door etched with swirling gold filigree, promising luxury within. Quiana paused, her reflection staring back. A black woman who had shattered glass ceilings, outsmarted venture capitalists, and built an empire from sheer will. Yet she knew places like this, steeped in old money and unspoken hierarchies, could be battlegrounds of their own. She smoothed her dress, adjusted the leather strap of her briefcase, and pushed through the door, the chime of a silver bell announcing her arrival. The air inside was thick with the scent of jasmine and hairspray, a heady mix that clung to the marble floors and gilded mirrors. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across the room, illuminating stylists in crisp black smocks who moved with choreographed precision, their scissors flashing like tiny swords. Quiana's gaze swept the space, taking in the plush velvet chairs, the sleek reception desk, and the low hum of conversation punctuated by the whir of blow-dryers. It was a sanctuary for the city's elite, a place where appearances were sculpted into power. She approached the desk, where Emily Carter, a young white woman with a tight blonde bun, sat typing, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard. Emily's eyes flicked up, then back to her screen, her expression one of practiced indifference. "Name?" she asked, her voice clipped, as if Quiana were an afterthought. "Quiana Harris," she replied, her tone warm but firm, a balance honed from years of navigating rooms where she was underestimated. "I have a 10 a.m. appointment for a blowout and chestnut highlights." Emily's gaze lingered on Quiana's dress, a faint smirk curling her lips, so subtle it might have gone unnoticed by anyone less attuned to microaggressions. "Right," she said, her fingers pausing on the keyboard. "We're running behind. Take a seat, it'll be a while." She gestured vaguely toward a row of chairs in the waiting area, then turned back to her screen, dismissing Quiana without another glance. A spark of irritation flared in Quiana's chest, but she tamped it down. She'd faced worse, boardroom snubs, funding pitches met with raised eyebrows, and she wouldn't let a brusque receptionist derail her focus. She crossed to the waiting area, her heels echoing in the cavernous space, and settled into a chair upholstered in deep sapphire velvet. The seat was plush, almost too soft, as if designed to lull clients into complacency. Quiana set her briefcase beside her, its leather worn from countless meetings, a silent testament to her grind. She pulled out her tablet, the screen glowing. with contract terms she'd memorized but reviewed again, her mind sharpening with each clause. This deal with Apex Dynamics wasn't just a contract, it was a legacy, a chance to prove that innovation and integrity could triumph over entrenched power. The salon buzzed around her, a microcosm of privilege. A stylist with a platinum pixie cut laughed with a client draped in a silk robe, their voices carrying notes of casual wealth. Another client, her wrists glittering with diamonds, sipped espresso from a porcelain cup, her laughter sharp and carefree. Quiana felt the weight of their glances, brief but pointed, as if assessing whether she belonged in their orbit. She held, her chin high, her posture a quiet defiance, but the familiar sting of being other prickled beneath her skin. She'd navigated these spaces before, country clubs, gala dinners, where her presence was both a novelty and a challenge. Today she was here for a purpose, not their approval. Her tablet screen dimmed, and she glanced at her watch. 10:15. The delay was unusual for a salon of this caliber, but Quiana attributed it to the morning rush. She opened a note app, jotting reminders for her presentation, emphasize scalability, highlight carbon reduction metrics. Her fingers moved swiftly, channeling her energy into preparation, but a nagging unease crept in. Emily hadn't checked a schedule or consulted a stylist. Her dismissal had felt personal, a subtle gatekeeping. Quiana pushed the thought aside, unwilling to let paranoia cloud her focus. She needed her hair perfect, soft waves, warm highlights, to project the polished confidence that closed deals. This was no vanity, it was strategy, a armor forged, in a world that judged her before she spoke. The silver bell chimed again, and a woman in a tailored blazer entered, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice clipped with authority. Emily greeted her with a smile, all warmth and deference, and ushered her to a station immediately. Quiana's brow furrowed. The woman hadn't waited, hadn't even checked in. The spark of irritation flared brighter, but Quiana breathed deeply, centering herself. She was Quiana Harris, CEO, innovator, a woman who turned obstacles into stepping stones. A delayed appointment wouldn't shake her. She returned to her tablet, but her eyes drifted to the salon's opulence, the mirrors reflecting a world of exclusion, the chandeliers casting light that didn't quite reach her. For a moment she felt the weight of every barrier she'd overcome, every slight endured. Yet she also felt the fire that had carried her this far, a blaze no one could extinguish. Today, she would walk into that boardroom and claim her victory. Luminary Locks was just the first step. Quiana Harris sat in the sapphire velvet chair of Luminary Locks' waiting area, her tablet glowing with contract terms that could reshape her company's future. The salon's opulence enveloped her, marble, floors gleaming under chandelier light, the air thick with jasmine, and the rhythmic hum of blow dryers. Her white dress, simple yet regal, contrasted with the room's extravagance, a quiet assertion of her presence. At 38, Quiana was no stranger to waiting, not for appointments, but for respect, for opportunities others took for granted. Yet, as the clock ticked past 10:30 a.m., the delay gnawed at her, a subtle erosion of the confidence she'd carried through the salon's gilded doors. Her 10 a.m. appointment for a blowout in chestnut highlights was critical. She needed to look flawless for the Apex Dynamics contract signing at 2 p.m., a $500 million deal that could cement Solstice Innovations as a global force. She shifted in the chair, the velvet clinging to her skin, too soft, almost suffocating. Her stilettos rested on the marble, one heel tapping a faint, impatient rhythm. The receptionist, Emily Carter, sat behind the desk, her blonde bun as tight as her demeanor, typing with a focus that felt performative. Quiana's eyes narrowed. Emily hadn't checked a schedule since dismissing her with a curt, "Take a seat." The memory of that smirk, that fleeting glance at her dress, lingered like a splinter. Quiana pushed it down, opening her tablets. Note app to jot metrics for her presentation. Carbon reduction stats, scalability projections. Work was her anchor, her shield against the unease creeping into her gut. The salon pulsed with life around her. A stylist with a platinum pixie cut laughed, her scissors flashing as she shaped a client's auburn bob. Another client, draped in a silk robe, sipped espresso, her diamond earrings catching the light like tiny stars. Their voices wove a tapestry of privilege, carefree and cutting, as if the room belonged to them alone. Quiana felt their glances, brief, assessing, then dismissive. A black woman in a white dress sitting with a briefcase was an anomaly here, a puzzle they didn't care to solve. She straightened her spine, her posture a silent rebuke. She wasn't here for their approval. She was here to win. Minutes bled into an hour. Quiana's watch read 11 a.m., and the waiting area grew stifling, the jasmine scent cloying. She refreshed her tablet, skimming emails from her team, but her focus wavered. The salon's rhythm felt off, a choreography that excluded her. Stylists called names: Claire, Victoria, Elizabeth, ushering clients to stations with smiles and small talk. Quiana's name remained unspoken, a deliberate omission that pricked her pride. She glanced at Emily, who was now chatting with a tighter stylist, her laughter sharp, her eyes darting toward Quiana for a split second. Was it mockery? Paranoia whispered yes, but Quiana silenced it. She'd faced boardroom biases, venture capitalists who questioned her credentials before her pitch. A delayed haircut wouldn't break her. She set her tablet aside, her fingers brushing the worn leather of her briefcase. It was a relic of her early days when she'd hustled for seed funding, sleeping in airport lounges to make meetings. That grind had forged her, and this weight, however intentional, wouldn't undo her. She crossed her legs, the movement drawing another glance from a client across the room, her lips pursing as if Quiana's presence offended the salon's unspoken order. Quiana met her gaze, her dark eyes steady, unyielding. The woman looked away, flustered, and Quiana's lips curved in a faint, defiant smile. At 11:15, the silver bell chimed, and the doors swung open. A woman strode in, her fur-trimmed coat a loud declaration of wealth, her heels clicking with imperial confidence. Rachel Vaughn, a socialite whose family's real estate empire dominated Boston's skyline, didn't pause at the desk. She snapped, her fingers, her platinum blonde hair catching the light, and Emily leapt to attention, her earlier indifference replaced by fawning deference. "Mrs. Vaughn, right this way," she gushed, ushering Rachel to a styling station adorned with fresh orchids. The speed of it, the seamless priority, hit Quiana like a slap. Rachel had arrived over an hour after her, yet she was seated instantly, her coat whisked away, a stylist already prepping her hair. Quiana's jaw tightened, her fingers curling around her briefcase. The injustice burned, not just the weight, but the blatant hierarchy it revealed. She was a CEO, a visionary, yet here she was invisible, relegated to the sidelines while Rachel Vaughn was crowned queen. Her heart thudded, a mix of anger and resolve. She'd faced this before, rooms where her skin marked her as less, where her achievements were footnotes to her race. But she'd never bowed, and she wouldn't now. She considered confronting Emily, demanding answers, but held back. This wasn't the moment. She needed her energy for apex dynamics, for the boardroom where her words, not her hair, would seal her legacy. The salon's chatter swelled, Rachel's voice rising above it, laced with entitlement as she critiqued her stylist's technique. Emily hovered nearby, nodding eagerly, her earlier smirk now a full smile. Quiana watched, her mind racing. Was this delay a fluke, or something uglier? The thought coiled in her chest, but she pushed it aside, opening her tablet again. She typed, a single note: stay focused, win. The contract was her battlefield, not this salon. Yet as the clock ticked toward 11:30, the wait felt less like a delay and more like a gauntlet, a test of her endurance in a world that too often demanded she prove her worth. Quiana closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, the jasmine now a faint irritant. She visualized the boardroom, the executives' faces, the moment she'd sign her name to a deal that would light up the future. That vision steadied her, a beacon through the haze of exclusion. She was Quiana Harris, and no waiting room. No sidelong glance could dim her fire. The salon might make her wait, but it wouldn't make her small. The sapphire velvet chair in Luminary Lock's waiting area seemed to tighten its grip on Quiana Harris as the clock struck 11:30 a.m. Her white dress, a beacon of elegance, felt like armor now, her long, glossy black hair cascading over her shoulders like a shield. The salon's opulence, marble floors, gilded mirrors, chandeliers casting prisms, mocked her with its exclusivity. Quiana's dark eyes burned with resolve. She'd waited nearly 2 hours for her 10 a.m. appointment, her patience eroded by the blatant favoritism shown to Rachel Vaughn, the socialite who'd breezed in and claimed priority. The sting of being sidelined, of being rendered invisible, ignited a fire in her chest. At 38, Quiana, the CEO of Solstice Innovations, had faced prejudice before, but this public slight, in a space meant to polish her for a $500 million contract signing, demanded action. She would not be dismissed. Quiana set her tablet down, the contract terms for Apex Dynamics fading from her mind. Her briefcase, a weathered companion from her hustling days, sat beside her, a reminder of the battles she'd won. She rose, her stilettos striking the marble with a deliberate cadence, each step a declaration of intent. The salon's hum, blow dryers, laughter, the clink of espresso cups, faded as heads turned, sensing a shift in the air. Her white dress caught the chandelier light, a stark contrast to the room's gilded excess, and her presence commanded attention, even from those who'd ignored her. She crossed to the reception desk where Emily Carter, the blonde receptionist with a bun as tight as her demeanor, typed with feigned focus. Emily's earlier smirk lingered in Quiana's memory, fueling her resolve. "Emily," Quiana said, her voice a measured blend of warmth and steel, honed from years of boardroom negotiations. "I've been waiting nearly 2 hours for my appointment. Can you explain why someone who arrived after me is being served first?" Her words hung in the air, clear and unyielding, slicing through the salon's chatter. A stylist paused mid-snip, her scissors glinting, and a client in a silk robe glanced up, her diamond earrings flashing. The room held its breath, sensing a confrontation that defied its unspoken rules. Emily's fingers froze on the keyboard, her blue eyes flicking up with a flicker of annoyance. She leaned back, her smile saccharine dripping with condescension. "Mrs. Vaughn is a VIP client," she said, her tone implying Quiana should know her place. "We prioritize her appointments. You'll be next, I promise." The word promise was a mockery, laced with a smugness that made Quiana's pulse quicken. Emily's gaze darted to the stylists who exchanged knowing smirks, their silent agreement a chorus of exclusion. The dismissal wasn't just personal, it was systemic, a reminder of every time Quiana's worth had been questioned because of her skin. Quiana's hands clenched at her sides, her nails pressing into her palms. She wanted to snap back, to call out the injustice, but years of navigating elite spaces taught her restraint. She leaned forward, her voice low, each syllable precise. "I booked this appointment a week ago. I have a critical meeting at 2 p.m. I expect to be treated with the same respect as any client here." Her eyes locked onto Emily's, unblinking. A challenge that dared the receptionist to deflect again. The salon's jasmine scent turned cloying, the air thick with tension. A stylist coughed, breaking the silence, but Emily's smile didn't waver, her confidence unshaken. Before Quiana could press further, a voice cut through the room, sharp and deliberate. "Oh, honey," Rachel Vaughn drawled from her styling station, her platinum blonde hair half-prepped, an orchid tucked behind her chair. She turned, her fur-trimmed coat draped over the armrest, her green eyes glinting with malice. "This salon caters to a certain caliber of client. Maybe try a walk-in place next time." Her words, loud enough for all to hear, landed like shards of glass, each one slicing into Quiana's pride. Laughter rippled through the salon, sharp, cruel, a chorus of complicity. A stylist giggled, another client smirked, and Emily's lips twitched, barely hiding her amusement. Rachel leaned back, satisfied, her manicured nails tapping her chair like a queen holding court. Quiana's cheeks burned, the heat rising to her temples, but she refused to flinch. Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of fury and dignity. She'd faced, worse, venture capitalists who'd questioned her competence, gala hosts who'd mispronounced her name. But this public humiliation, in a space meant to empower, was a new kind of wound. Her mind flashed to her journey, nights spent coding in her dorm, pitching to rooms of skeptical white men, building solstice innovations from nothing. She was no interloper. She was a titan. Rachel's words, Emily's smirk, the salon's laughter, they weren't just insults. They were a gauntlet daring her to shrink. She straightened, her posture regal, her white dress a banner of defiance. "I belong here as much as anyone," she said, her voice steady, projecting to every corner of the salon. "My time is valuable, and I won't be treated as less." The words were for Emily, for Rachel, for the entire room. A hush fell, the laughter dying, replaced by uneasy shifts and averted gazes. Rachel's smile faltered, her fingers pausing mid-tap. Emily's smugness wavered, her eyes darting to the floor. The stylists resumed their work, but the air crackled with Quiana's resolve, a force that reshaped the room's dynamics. Quiana held Emily's gaze, her dark eyes unyielding, a silent promise that she wouldn't back down. The receptionist swallowed, her bravado crumbling under the weight of Quiana's presence. "I'll check with the stylists," Emily muttered, her voice barely audible, a retreat disguised as compliance. Quiana nodded, a single, deliberate gesture, then turned back to her chair, her heels echoing with purpose. The salon's chatter resumed, but it was subdued, the laughter extinguished. She sat, her briefcase at her side, her tablet untouched. The confrontation hadn't won her a styling chair, but it had reclaimed her dignity. Quiana Harris was no one's afterthought, and Luminary Locks would learn that soon enough. Quiana Harris sat in the styling chair at Luminary Locks, the salon's gilded mirrors reflecting her white dress like a beacon of defiance. Her long, glossy black hair spilled over her shoulders, a canvas for the chestnut highlights she'd requested to perfect her look for the 2 p.m. contract signing with Apex Dynamics. The confrontation with Emily Carter and Rachel Vaughn had left the air charged, the salon's chatter subdued, but Quiana's resolve was unbroken. At 38, she was the CEO of Solstice Innovations, a titan forged in the crucible of bias and ambition. The $500 million deal looming ahead demanded she look as powerful as she felt, and she wouldn't let the salon's earlier slight derail her. Yet as Emily approached with a tray of dye bottles, a glint of malice in her blue eyes sent a shiver down Quiana's spine. The styling station was a microcosm of luxury, a sleek black chair, a marble counter adorned with orchids, and a mirror, framed in gold. The jasmine-scented air clung to Quiana's skin, now tinged with the chemical tang of hair products. Emily's tight blonde bun gleamed under the chandelier light, her movements precise but oddly theatrical, as if performing for an unseen audience. "Chestnut highlights, right?" she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, a stark contrast to the condescension she'd shown earlier. Quiana nodded, her dark eyes narrowing. "Yes, subtle, warm tones to complement my natural color. I need it done by 1:30. Her tone was firm, a reminder of her authority, but Emily's lips twitched, a smirk barely concealed. Quiana's instincts flared. Years of navigating elite spaces, boardrooms, galas, had honed her ability to read subtext, and something in Emily's demeanor screamed deceit. The receptionist's earlier dismissal, her fawning over Rachel Vaughn, the laughter that followed, Rachel's cruel jab, all pointed to a pattern. Quiana pushed the thought aside, focusing on the mirror, where her reflection radiated strength. Her white dress hugged her frame, its simplicity a counterpoint to the salon's excess. She needed this appointment to go smoothly. The Apex executives would judge her appearance before her words, a reality she'd long accepted. Her hair, her armor, had to be perfect. Emily began, sectioning Quiana's hair with a comb, her fingers moving with practiced ease. She mixed dyes. At the counter, bottles clinking, her back turned just long enough to obscure her actions. Quiana watched, her unease growing. The salon buzzed around them, stylists snipping, clients chatting, Rachel's voice rising from her station with a critique of her stylist's technique. The socialite's fur-trimmed coat hung nearby, a symbol of her unearned privilege. Quiana's gaze returned to Emily, who now applied the dye, her brushstrokes deliberate, almost gleeful. The liquid glistened, but its hue seemed off, too vibrant, too unnatural. Quiana's heart quickened, but she held her tongue, unwilling to accuse, without evidence. The process continued, the dye soaking into her hair, the chemical scent sharpening. Emily hummed softly, a tune that felt mocking, her eyes darting to Quiana's reflection with a flicker of amusement. Quiana's fingers gripped the armrests, her nails pressing into the leather. She visualized the boardroom, the contract signing, the moment she'd secure Solstice Innovations' future. That vision steadied her, but the mirror told a different story. As Emily rinsed a test strand, Quiana caught a glimpse of her hair, still wet, taking on a garish hue, not the warm chestnut she'd requested, but a deep, unnatural blue-green, like a cheap carnival dye. Her breath caught, a cold wave of dread, washing over her. "Emily," Quiana said, her voice low, controlled but edged with fury. "What's happening? This isn't a chestnut. This isn't what I asked for." The salon's hum faltered, heads turning, sensing a storm. Emily stepped, back her smirk breaking free, barely masked by a shrug. "Oh, must have grabbed the wrong bottle," she said, her tone flippant, as if Quiana's outrage were an overreaction. "It's just a bold look, right? You can pull it off." The lie was transparent, the mockery unmistakable. From across the room, Rachel's cackle erupted, sharp and cruel, her green eyes glinting with delight. "Looks like a statement piece," she called, her voice a dagger, drawing giggles from nearby stylists. Quiana's cheeks burned, her heart pounding, like a war drum. This wasn't a mistake. It was sabotage, a deliberate act to humiliate her before her career-defining moment. Her hair, her pride, was now a garish mockery, a neon stain that screamed disrespect. She stared at her reflection, the blue-green, streaks glaring under the lights, and felt the weight of every slight she'd endured. Boardroom whispers, skeptical investors, the assumption she was less. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with a rage that threatened to spill over. She wanted to tear the smock off, to demand justice, but she forced herself to breathe, to think. The contract signing was in 2 hours. She couldn't unravel. Now. Her mind raced, replaying Emily's smugness, Rachel's laughter, the salon's complicity. This was no accident. It was a calculated attack, a message that she didn't belong in their world. Quiana's eyes locked onto Emily's in the mirror, her gaze a blade. "This was intentional," she said, her voice steady, each word a verdict. Emily's smirk faltered, her bravado cracking, but she doubled down, tossing her head. "It's just hair," she said, turning away as if Quiana's anger were beneath her. Rachel's laughter swelled, a chorus of malice, and the salon's gilded walls seemed to close in, a gilded cage of prejudice. Quiana stood, her white dress stark, against the chaos, her hair dripping with the evidence of betrayal. Her heart thundered, but her face was a mask of composure, a skill honed in rooms that tried to break her. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her crack. Her briefcase sat by the waiting area, a reminder of her purpose. She was Quiana Harris, a titan, and this sabotage wouldn't define her, but it would have consequences. She reached for her phone, her fingers steady, her resolve ironclad. The salon had drawn a line, and Quiana was ready to cross it. Quiana Harris stood frozen before the gilded mirror at luminary locks, her white dress a stark contrast to the garish blue-green streaks marring her long, glossy black hair. The salon's jasmine scent choked her, the chandelier light casting cruel highlights on the sabotage that threatened her dignity. At 38, Quiana, the CEO of Solstice Innovations, was no stranger to battles, but this betrayal, Emily Carter's deliberate die, swap Rachel Vaughn's mocking laughter, cut deeper than any boardroom slight. Her 2 p.m. contract signing with Apex Dynamics, a $500 million deal to elevate her company globally, loomed less than 2 hours away. Her hair, meant to be her armor, was now a neon mockery, a calculated attempt to humiliate her before her defining moment. Rage surged through her veins, a molten tide. But Quiana's face remained a mask of steel, her dark eyes burning with a fire no one in the salon could extinguish. The styling station felt like a stage, the mirror a spotlight on her violation. Emily stood nearby, her tight blonde bun gleaming, her smirk barely concealed as she wiped her hands on a towel, as if dismissing the wreckage she'd wrought. Rachel's cackle echoed from her station, her platinum blonde hair half-styled, her fur-trimmed coat a throne of privilege. The salon's chatter had resumed, stylists snipping, clients murmuring, but it was a thin veneer over the tension Quiana's accusation had sparked. "This was intentional," she'd said, her voice a blade, and though Emily had shrugged it off, the truth hung heavy, a guillotine waiting to fall. Quiana's hands trembled, not with fear, but with the effort to contain her fury. She wanted to scream, to upend the tray of dye bottles, but she was Quiana Harris, a titan who turned chaos into triumph. She sat back in the chair, the leather creaking under her weight, her white dress pooling like a fallen banner. The blue-green streaks dripped, staining the smock, each drop a reminder of the salon's cruelty. Her heart pounded, a war drum. But her mind raced, strategizing. The contract signing demanded perfection, polished hair, flawless presence, to silence the Apex executive's unconscious biases. This sabotage wasn't just personal, it was an attack on her legacy, a bid to make her small before a world that already doubted her. Her fingers brushed her briefcase left by the waiting area, a relic of her grind. She'd built Solstice innovations from nothing, outsmarting skeptics, defying odds. This salon, with its gilded walls and petty hierarchies, wouldn't break. Quiana's gaze swept the room, taking in the stylist's averted eyes, the client's furtive glances. Rachel's laughter had faded, but her smugness lingered, her manicured nails tapping her chair. Emily busied herself at the counter, her movements too casual, a performance of innocence. The salon's opulence, marble floors, orchids, chandeliers, felt like a gilded cage, its beauty a mask for ugliness. Quiana's chest tightened, memories flooding in, boardroom whispers questioning her competence, Gala hosts mispronouncing her name, the endless scrutiny of being a black woman in power. Each had been a stone in her path, and she'd turned them into steps. This sabotage was another, heavier, but she would not stumble. Her hand found her phone, tucked in the pocket of her dress, its weight a lifeline. She could call her team, reschedule the appointment, find another salon. But time was a luxury she didn't have. The clock read 12:15 p.m., the minutes slipping like sand. Then, a name surfaced in her mind. Weston. Her husband, the billionaire founder of Hale Style Co., which owns Luminary Locks. Weston, with his piercing blue eyes and unyielding love, who'd stood by her through every storm. He was her strength, her ally, and he'd know how to right this wrong. The thought steadied her, a beacon through the haze of betrayal. She wouldn't let Emily and Rachel see her unravel. She'd turn their malice into her victory. Quiana's fingers closed around the phone, her nails pressing into the case. She stood, her stilettos striking the marble, each step a reclaiming of her power. The salon's hum faltered, heads turning, sensing a shift. She crossed to the waiting area where her briefcase sat, a silent witness to her resolve. She retrieved her phone, its screen glowing as she unlocked it. Her reflection in the glass caught her eye, blue-green streaks glaring, but her posture regal, her eyes fierce. She was no victim, she was a force. The salon's jasmine scent faded, replaced by the chemical tang of the dye, a reminder of the line they'd crossed. Quiana would cross one of her own. She dialed Weston's number, her thumb steady, her breath measured. The line rang once, twice, then his voice, warm but edged with concern, answered. Quiana, what's wrong? He knew her too well, heard the steel in her silence. She stepped toward a corner, away from the salon's prying eyes, her voice low, controlled but trembling with fury. I need you here, she said, each word a vow. Now. She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. Weston's silence was brief, a promise of action. I'm coming, he said, and the line went dead. Quiana lowered the phone, her heart thudding, not with relief, but with anticipation. The storm was coming, and she'd summoned it. She returned to the chair, her movements deliberate, her white dress a symbol of her unyielding spirit. The blue-green streaks mocked her, but she sat tall, her gaze fixed on the mirror. Emily glanced over, her smirk faltering, sensing a change. Rachel's tapping nails paused, her green eyes narrowing. The salon's chatter continued, but it was hollow, a facade over the tension Quiana had ignited. She closed her eyes, visualizing the boardroom, the contract, the future she'd build. Weston was on his way, and with him justice. The salon had tried to dim her light, but Quiana Harris was ablaze, and they'd soon feel her heat. The air in Luminary Locke's salon crackled with unease as Quiana Harris sat in the styling chair, her white dress a defiant beacon against the garish blue-green streaks sabotaging her long, glossy black hair. The gilded mirrors reflected her composure, a mask forged from years of battling prejudice, but her dark eyes simmered with resolve. The salon's jasmine scent was now a bitter undertone to the chemical stench of the dye, a reminder of Emily Carter's betrayal. At 12:35 p.m., with her $500 million contract signing looming, Quiana's call to her husband, Weston Hale, had set a storm in motion. The distant roar of a motorcycle shattered the salon's polished hum, a primal growl that silenced the chatter of stylists and clients alike. Quiana's heart thudded, not with fear but with anticipation. Weston was here, and the reckoning had begun. The glass doors burst open and Weston Hale strode in, a force of nature in a tailored black leather jacket that hugged his chiseled frame. At 40, the billionaire founder of Hale Style Co., which owned Luminary Locks, was a vision of controlled fury. His sandy hair tousled from the ride, his piercing blue eyes blazing. Outside, his $3.6 million Ecosse Spirit motorcycle gleamed, its titanium frame a testament to his power. The salon froze. Scissors paused mid-snip. Blow dryers fell silent, and clients gaped, their espresso cups forgotten. Weston's presence was a thunderclap, his boots striking the marble floor with a rhythm that demanded obedience. His gaze swept the room, locking onto Quiana, then her hair, the blue-green streaks a glaring wound. His jaw clenched, a vein pulsing at his temple, and the air grew heavy with his wrath. He crossed the salon in 3 strides, stopping inches from Emily Carter, who stood behind the counter, her tight blonde bun stark against her paling face. "What?" Weston said, his voice low, lethal, each word a blade. "Did you do to my wife's hair?" The question reverberated, a verdict delivered before a trial. Emily's smirk, so smug moments ago, vanished, her blue eyes widening in panic. She clutched a towel, her fingers trembling, and stammered, It was an accident, Mr. Hale. I swear." Her voice cracked, a fragile shield against the storm. Weston's eyes narrowed, his finger pointing like a judge's gavel. "An accident?" he roared, his tone slicing through her lies. "You deliberately humiliated her. You're done here. Pack your things, you're fired." Emily's mouth fell open, a gasp escaping as her bravado crumbled. The salon's opulence, chandeliers, orchids, marble, seemed to shrink under Weston's fury, its grandeur no match for his authority. Stylists exchanged stunned glances, their scissors idle, while clients whispered, their diamonds dimmed by the spectacle. Emily's hand shook as she backed away, her towel dropping to the floor, a white flag of surrender. "But, Mr. Hale," she tried, but Weston's glare silenced her, a promise of consequences she couldn't escape. The room held its breath, the weight of his power palpable, a reminder that Luminary Locks was his domain, and he would not tolerate betrayal. Weston turned, his gaze finding Rachel Vaughn, who shrank in her styling chair, her platinum blonde hair half-prepped, her fur-trimmed coat a feeble shield. Her green eyes darted, seeking an escape, but Weston's voice pinned her in place. "And you, Mrs. Vaughn," he said, his tone colder than steel. "Your behavior was disgraceful. Mocking my wife, encouraging this sabotage, you're banned. From every Hale salon worldwide, get out." Rachel's manicured nails gripped her chair, her face flushing with indignation. "You can't," she began, but Weston's raised hand stopped her, his authority absolute. "Now," he said, and the word was final, a decree that brooked no argument. Rachel scrambled to her feet, snatching her coat, her heels clicking frantically as she muttered about her family's influence. The salon watched, transfixed, as she stormed toward the doors, her exit a humiliating retreat. The silver bell chimed mockingly as she vanished, leaving a void where her arrogance had reigned. Weston ignored the chaos, his focus returning to Quiana, who sat tall, her white dress radiant, her blue-green streaked hair a temporary scar. Her eyes met his, a silent exchange of love and strength, her composure a testament to her resilience. The salon's chatter remained hushed, the stylist's hands idle, the client's whispers a faint echo of the upheaval. Weston's boots echoed as he stepped closer to Quiana, his fury softening into concern. He reached out, his fingers hovering near her hair, not touching, as if the sabotage were a wound he couldn't bear to probe. "They'll pay for this," he said, his voice low, meant only for her. Quiana nodded, a single, deliberate gesture, her lips curving in a faint, defiant smile. She was no victim. She was a titan, and Weston's presence was her sword. The salon's gilded walls, once a cage, now felt fragile, their opulence dwarfed by the power of their bond. The clock ticked toward 12:45 p.m., the contract signing. Drawing closer, but Quiana felt a surge of certainty. Weston was here, and together they were unstoppable. The stylists resumed their work, their movements tentative, as if fearing Weston's next move. Emily stood frozen, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her career unraveling before her. Clients averted their gazes, their privilege shaken by the swift justice they'd witnessed. Weston's leather jacket gleamed, a symbol of his dominion, and the Ecosse Spirit outside roared faintly as a passerby admired it, a reminder of his reach. Quiana sat, her briefcase by the waiting area, her tablet untouched, her mind clear. The salon had tried to break her, but Weston's wrath had shattered their illusions. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had turned, and Quiana Harris was ready to rise. The silence in Luminary Lock's salon was a fragile thing, shattered only by the faint hum of a distant blow-dryer and the echo of Rachel Vaughn's retreating heels. Quiana Harris sat in the styling chair, her white dress a radiant emblem of her unyielding spirit, though the garish blue-green streaks in her long, glossy black hair remained a cruel scar of sabotage. At 38, the CEO of Solstice Innovations was a titan, her dark eyes steady despite the betrayal that had threatened her dignity. The clock read 12:45 p.m. Her $500 million contract signing with Apex Dynamics less than an hour and a half away. Weston Hale, her husband, stood before her, his black leather jacket still radiating the heat of his fury. The billionaire founder of Hale Style Co. had just fired Emily Carter and banned Rachel. But now his piercing blue eyes softened, his focus solely on Quiana. The salon, with its gilded mirrors and jasmine-scented air, became their sanctuary. A stage for her rebirth. Weston's boots clicked softly as he guided Quiana to his styling station at the back, a secluded enclave reserved for his rare appearances. "Come here, love," he said, his voice a low, tender murmur, a stark contrast to the thunder that had silenced the salon. The station was pristine, a sleek black chair, a marble counter lined with premium products, and a mirror that reflected only them, shutting out the world's cruelty. Quiana sat, her white dress pooling like moonlight, the blue-green streaks glaring under the soft lighting. Weston's hands hovered near her hair, his fingers trembling not with anger, but with reverence for the woman he'd vowed to protect. "I'll fix this," he said, his tone a promise etched in steel and love. "You'll be radiant for that signing." The salon's opulence, chandeliers casting prisms, orchids perfuming the air, faded as Weston worked, his movements those of a master sculptor. He draped a fresh smock over Quiana, its silk whispering against her skin, and assessed the damage with a clinician's precision. The blue-green dye, a vicious act of sabotage, had stained her natural black hair, but Weston's expertise was unmatched. He selected a neutralizing agent from the counter, its bottle glinting like a potion, and began applying it with a brush, his strokes deliberate, almost reverent. The chemical tang of the dye softened, replaced by a clean, herbal scent that calmed Quiana's racing pulse. She watched him in the mirror, his sandy hair falling over his brow, his jaw set with focus, and felt a warmth spread through her chest, thawing the ice of her earlier rage. Weston's hands moved with a dancer's grace, sectioning her hair, rinsing strands in a basin that gleamed like polished onyx. The blue-green hue began to fade, each rinse revealing the glossy black beneath, a restoration of her essence. Quiana's shoulders relaxed, the tension of Emily's betrayal and Rachel's mockery loosening their grip. "You always know how to make things right," she said softly, her voice a thread of gratitude. Weston met her eyes in the mirror, his smile a quiet fire. "You make everything worth it," he replied, his words a vow that anchored her. The salon's hum, stylists resuming their work, clients whispering, was a distant murmur, irrelevant in their cocoon of trust. He mixed a new dye, a warm chestnut that caught the light like polished amber, and applied it with meticulous care. Each brushstroke was a reclamation, a defiance of the salon's attempt to diminish her. Quiana's hair, once a canvas of sabotage, became a masterpiece under Weston's hands, the chestnut highlights weaving seamlessly into her natural color. Her reflection transformed, the blue-green nightmare replaced by elegance, each strand accentuating her beauty. She felt her confidence surge, a phoenix rising from the ashes of humiliation. The contract signing loomed, but with Weston's touch she was no longer just prepared, she was unstoppable. Weston's fingers worked magic, styling her hair into soft, voluminous waves that cascaded over her shoulders, each curl a testament to his skill and love. He used a lightweight serum, its citrus scent mingling with the herbal notes to add shine, his hands coaxing her hair into a vision of power. Quiana's eyes glistened, not with tears but with pride. She'd faced prejudice, boardroom skepticism, gala slights, but Weston's unwavering support reminded her she was never alone. "You're a miracle worker," she said, her voice rich with emotion. He leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "You're the miracle," he whispered, and the intimacy of the moment shut out the salon's gilded cage. The clock ticked toward 1:30 p.m., and Weston stepped back, his hands resting on her shoulders. "Look at you," he said, his voice thick with admiration. Quiana turned to the mirror, her breath catching. Her hair was flawless, the chestnut highlights shimmering, the waves framing her face like a crown. Her white dress glowed, her dark eyes fierce, her presence regal. She was Quiana Harris, CEO, visionary, a woman who turned betrayal into triumph. The blue-green streaks were gone, erased by Weston's skill, and with them, the weight of the salon's cruelty. She stood, her stilettos striking the marble, and faced Weston, her smile a blaze of gratitude and strength. The salon watched, its chatter subdued, the stylist's scissors moving tentatively, as if fearing to disturb the moment. The clients, glances once dismissive, now held awe, their privilege humbled by the power of Quiana's transformation. Weston's leather jacket gleamed, a symbol of his dominion, and outside, the Ecosse Spirit waited, its titanium frame a silent witness. Quiana's briefcase, left by the waiting area, held the contract terms that would redefine her legacy, But in this moment, her hair, her restored pride, was her victory. She took Weston's hand, their fingers intertwining, a silent pact that they'd face any storm together. Weston nodded, his blue eyes bright with pride. "They'll sign that contract before you sit down," he said, his grin a spark of mischief and certainty. Quiana laughed, a sound that cut through the salon's tension, a declaration of her unbreakable spirit. The transformation was complete, not just of her hair, but of her resolve. Luminary locks had tried to dim her light, but Weston's love had made it blaze. She was ready, not just for the boardroom, but for the world. Quiana Harris stepped from the sleek black sedan onto the bustling sidewalk of Boston's financial district, the autumn sun glinting off the glass tower of Apex Dynamics headquarters. Her white dress, a tailored sheath of understated elegance, shimmered against the city's pulse, and her long, glossy black hair, now adorned with warm chestnut highlights, cascaded in soft waves, a masterpiece crafted by her husband, Weston Hale. At 38, Quiana, the CEO of Solstice Innovations, was a vision of power and grace, her dark eyes blazing with purpose. The clock neared 2 p.m., the moment of her $500 million contract signing, a deal that could catapult her renewable energy startup into a global force. The morning's sabotage at Luminary Locks, where her hair was dyed a garish blue-green, had tested her resolve, but Weston's intervention had restored her radiance. Now Quiana was ready to claim her victory, not just for herself, but for every dream she'd fought to make real. The tower's lobby was a cathedral of ambition, its marble floors echoing with the click of her stilettos, its soaring glass walls refracting light like a prism. Quiana carried her leather briefcase, its worn surface a relic of her grind, and her tablet loaded with data that would seal the deal. The elevator ride to the 40th floor was a quiet ascent, the hum of the machinery a counterpoint to her steadying breaths. She visualized the boardroom, the executives, their tailored suits and skeptical gazes, the weight of their expectations. She'd faced rooms like this before, venture capitalists who doubted her, industry titans who saw her race before. Her brilliance, but today she was no underdog. She was Quiana Harris, and this contract was her destiny. The boardroom doors swung open, revealing a sleek expanse of mahogany and glass, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Boston's skyline. The Apex Dynamics executives, 5 men and 2 women in crisp suits, rose to greet her, their smiles polite but guarded. The lead negotiator, James Carver, a silver-haired veteran with a reputation for ruthlessness, extended a hand. "Ms. Harris, welcome," he said, his voice smooth, his eyes assessing her hair, her dress, her presence. Quiana shook his hand, her grip firm, her smile a blend of warmth and steel. "Thank you, Mr. Carver," she replied, her tone commanding attention. She took her seat at the head of the table, her briefcase beside her, her posture a silent declaration. She belonged. Here. The room buzzed with anticipation as Quiana opened her tablet, its screen glowing with charts and projections. She launched into her presentation, her voice clear, each word a carefully honed arrow. "Solstice Innovations isn't just a company," she began. "It's a vision for a sustainable future. Our solar technology reduces carbon emissions by 40% while scaling to meet global demand." Her slides shifted. Graphs of efficiency, maps of proposed installations, testimonials from pilot projects. The executives leaned forward, their skepticism softening, drawn in by her data and her conviction. Quiana's chestnut highlights caught the light, her waves framing her face like a crown, and her white dress glowed, a beacon of her resilience. The salon's betrayal felt distant, a shadow eclipsed by her brilliance. Carver interjected, his tone probing. "Your projections are ambitious, Ms. Harris. What about cost overruns? Supply chain risks?" Quiana met his gaze, unflinching. "We've mitigated those with strategic partnerships and modular designs," she said, swiping to a slide detailing logistics. "Our costs are 15% below industry averages, and we've secured redundancies to ensure delivery." Her response was airtight, her confidence unshaken. The other executives nodded, scribbling notes, their initial reserve giving way to respect. Quiana felt the room shift, the power tilting in her favor. She'd faced worse than Carver's scrutiny, boardrooms that questioned her legitimacy, investors who saw her as a diversity quota. Today, she was rewriting the narrative. The presentation flowed, each slide a building block in her empire. Quiana spoke of innovation, equity, and the urgency of climate action, her passion igniting the room. A female executive, Dr. Elena Ruiz, asked about community impact, and Quiana's answer, detailing job creation in underserved regions, drew murmurs of approval. Her tablet gleamed, her data unassailable, but it was her presence that sealed the deal, poised, commanding, a woman who'd turned sabotage into strength. The salon's cruelty, Emily's smirk, Rachel's laughter, they were footnotes now, irrelevant against the magnitude of this moment. Quiana's heart raced, not with nerves but with the thrill of victory within reach. Carver leaned back, his fingers steepled, a faint smile breaking his stern facade. "Impressive, Ms. Harris. Your vision is compelling and your numbers hold." He glanced at his colleagues, who nodded in unison. "We're prepared to move forward." The words landed like a thunderclap, and Quiana's breath caught, a surge of triumph flooding her chest. She opened her briefcase, producing the contract, its pages crisp, its stakes monumental. The executives reviewed it, their pens poised, and within minutes signatures flowed, Carver's, Ruiz's, the others. Quiana signed last, her name a bold flourish, the ink a testament to her legacy. The $500 million deal was hers, and Solstice Innovations now a global contender. The room erupted in handshakes and congratulations, the executives' smiles genuine, their respect earned. Carver clasped her hand, his grip firm. "You've set a new standard, Ms. Harris," he said, and Quiana nodded, her smile radiant. "This is just the beginning," she replied, her voice rich with promise. She gathered her tablet and briefcase, her chestnut waves shimmering as she stood, her white dress a symbol of her unbreakable spirit. The boardroom's glass walls reflected her triumph, Boston's skyline a canvas for her dreams. The salon's sabotage had been a fleeting wound, healed by Weston's love and her own resilience. This victory was hers, forged in fire. As Quiana exited the boardroom, her stilettos clicked with purpose, each step a celebration. The elevator descended, carrying her back to the world, but she was transformed, not by her hair but by the weight of what she'd achieved. The Apex contract was more than a deal. It was a beacon for every black woman who'd been doubted, a proof that brilliance could shatter any ceiling. Quiana's heart soared, her mind already racing to the next challenge, the next dream. The city pulsed outside, and she was its heartbeat, a titan ready to light up the world. The Boston skyline glittered like a constellation fallen to earth as Quiana Harris stepped onto the rooftop terrace of L'Etoile, the city's most exclusive restaurant, perched atop a glass tower. Her white dress glowed under the soft string lights, its tailored elegance a quiet testament to her triumph. Her long, glossy black hair, adorned with chestnut highlights, swayed in the evening breeze, each wave a reminder of Weston Hale's loving restoration after the morning's sabotage. At 38, Quiana, the CEO of Solstice Innovations, was a beacon of resilience, her dark eyes alight with the fire of victory. Hours earlier, she'd secured a $500 million contract with Apex Dynamics, a deal that would redefine her company's future. Now, with her husband Weston by her side, she was ready to celebrate. Not just the deal, but the strength that had carried her through a day of betrayal and triumph. Weston, striking in his black leather jacket, his sandy hair catching the light, guided her to a private table overlooking the city. At 40, the billionaire founder of Hale Style Co. was her rock, his piercing blue eyes warm with pride. The terrace was a haven of elegance, linen-draped tables, flickering candles, and a jazz quartet weaving a sultry melody through the air. The scent of rosemary and roasted figs drifted from nearby plates, mingling with the crisp autumn chill. Quiana's stilettos clicked softly on the polished wood floor, each step a declaration of her arrival, not just at L'Étoile, but at the pinnacle of her dreams. Her leather briefcase, left in the sedan below, held the signed contract, a tangible symbol of her legacy. They sat, the city sprawling beneath them, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat. A waiter, his bow tie pristine, presented a bottle of vintage champagne, its label glinting in the candlelight. Weston nodded, and the cork popped with a soft sigh, bubbles rising like tiny stars in the flutes. Gayana's fingers brushed the stem of her glass, her nails catching the light, and she met Weston's gaze, a silent conversation passing between them. The morning's ordeal at Luminary Locks, Emily Carter's sabotage, Rachel Vaughn's cruelty, felt like a distant storm, its clouds parted by Weston's fierce intervention and her unyielding spirit. This moment, this celebration, was theirs, a sanctuary carved from adversity. Weston raised his flute, the champagne sparkling, his smile a blend of mischief and adoration. "To us," he said, his voice low, resonant, "and to never letting anyone dim our shine." Quiana's lips curved, her heart swelling with gratitude. "To you, Weston," she replied, her voice rich with emotion, "and to the empire we're building together." Their glasses clinked, a crystalline note that echoed over the terrace, sealing their pact. The champagne was crisp, its effervescence dancing on her tongue, a taste of victory that washed away the lingering bitterness of the salon's betrayal. She sipped, savoring the moment, the city's glow a mirror to her inner fire. The jazz. Quartet shifted to a slower tune, its saxophone weaving a thread of longing and triumph. Quiana leaned back, her white dress catching the breeze, and let her gaze wander over the skyline. The Charles River shimmering, the towers standing like sentinels. Her mind drifted to the journey that had brought her here, coding in her dorm, at MIT, pitching to skeptical investors, building Solstice innovations from a spark into a blaze. The contract, signed hours ago, was more than a deal. It was a beacon for every black woman who'd been doubted, proof that resilience could shatter any barrier. The salon's attempt to humiliate her, blue-green dye staining her hair, laughter, ringing in her ears, had been a fleeting wound healed by Weston's love and her defiance. Weston's hand found hers, his fingers warm, grounding. "You were unstoppable today," he said, his blue eyes searching hers, seeing the depths of her strength. "The way you walked into that boardroom owned it. You're a force, Quiana." She squeezed his hand, her smile softening. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice a quiet confession. "You turned their sabotage into my armor." Weston's grin flashed, a spark of pride. "You were always the armor," he said. "I just polished it." Their laughter mingled with the jazz, a sound that cut through the evening's chill, a celebration of their unbreakable bond. The waiter returned, presenting plates of seared scallops and truffle risotto, their aromas rich and inviting. Quiana took a bite, the flavors bursting, a reminder of life's sweetness after its storms. She thought of Luminary Locks, its gilded walls a cage of prejudice, and felt a surge of satisfaction. Emily's smirk, Rachel's cackle. They were shadows now, irrelevant against the magnitude of her triumph. Weston had dismantled their cruelty with a single command, and Quiana had sealed her legacy with a signature. The contrast was poetic, a reminder that love and integrity could topple any empire of malice. The quartet's melody swelled, and Quiana's gaze returned to the skyline, its lights a canvas for her dreams. Solstice innovations would light up the world, its solar technology a promise of sustainability and equity. She envisioned factories humming, communities thriving, her name synonymous with progress. Weston watched her, his expression tender, as if seeing the future in her eyes. "What's next?" he asked, his voice a gentle challenge. Quiana's smile widened, a blaze of ambition. "Everything," she said, and the word was a vow, a spark that would ignite the next chapter of her empire. The champagne flute stood empty, their bubbles spent. But Quiana's spirit was boundless. She leaned closer to Weston, their shoulders brushing, the warmth of his presence a home no tower could rival. The jazz faded, leaving only the city's hum and their shared silence. A language of love and triumph. Quiana Harris was no longer the woman who'd stepped into luminary locks that morning. She was a titan, her light undimmed, her legacy forged in fire. The night stretched before them, vast and forgiving, and as the stars emerged, Quiana knew. This was just the beginning. What a journey Quiana's triumph has been. We hope her story of resilience and victory left you inspired. What did you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Quiana's strength resonate with you, or did Weston's fierce loyalty steal the show? Your feedback fuels our stories. A huge thank you for joining us tonight, for sharing this moment under Boston's glittering skyline. Your support means the world, so hit that subscribe button and join us next time for more tales of courage and heart. Until we meet again, keep shining like Quiana, and let us know where you're listening from.